The rain was falling hard on the colony town, each drop tapping against the metal roof like a drum. The streets were quiet, filled with flickering lights from broken lamps. A human named Daniel sat inside his small house, staring at his empty table. He was a man who worked long hours repairing machines for the colony. But when he came home, silence always welcomed him. One evening, while Daniel was fixing a broken heating unit, there was a soft knock at his door. At first he thought it was just the wind, but then it came again, slow and heavy. He stood up, wiped his hands on his shirt and opened the door. Standing there was a tall alien woman, her cloak dripping with rain. Her face was half hidden, but her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They were not threatening, more like tired, like eyes that had seen too much. She spoke in a soft voice. "I was told you hire help?" Daniel blinked. He had put out a small notice earlier that week, asking for someone to help clean and cook. His work left him no time, and he was tired of living in a house filled with dust and cold meals. But he never thought someone like her would answer. She looked different from most aliens he had seen on the colony. Her skin was pale silver, her hair long and dark. Falling across her shoulders, her clothes were simple, almost worn out, and she carried no belongings, just herself, and the weight of something unspoken. "Yes," Daniel said slowly. I did. Are you here for that?" She nodded once, her expression calm but unreadable. "If you want, I can work. I don't ask for much, just food and a place to stay. Money is not important, not anymore." Her words carried something heavy. Daniel felt it at once. He stepped aside and let her in. She entered quietly, leaving small wet footprints on the floor. As she stood in the dim light of his home, Daniel finally saw her clearly. There were faint scars along her neck, almost like marks from chains. Her hands trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. "What's your name?" Daniel asked gently. She hesitated, then answered, "Solari." Daniel nodded. "I'm Daniel. You can stay here if you want, just—" "No, I don't have much. I'm not rich. I just fix machines. That's all." Solari lowered her eyes. "That is enough." The silence between them was thick. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Daniel showed her the small guest room beside his own. It had an old bed and a cracked window, but it was warmer than the streets. She looked around and whispered, "It's safe," as if safety was something rare for her. That night, Daniel lay awake, listening to the sound of rain from the other room. He heard Solari's quiet sobs. She tried to muffle them, but he could still hear. He wanted to knock on her door, ask if she was all right. But something held him back. She was a stranger, yet somehow he felt she carried a story darker than the night itself. The next morning, when Daniel came out for breakfast, Solari was already awake. She had cleaned the table, swept the floor, and prepared something warm. The smell of cooked grain filled the room. Daniel was surprised. He had not tasted such food in months. "You didn't have to," he began. Solari shook her head. "Work makes me forget." "Please let me." Daniel watched her carefully. She moved with grace, but her eyes always darted toward the door, the window, the corners of the room, as if she expected someone to break in at any moment. The neighbors noticed quickly. By midday, whispers had already spread across the colony town. "The human hired her," some said. "Does he even know who she is?" Others muttered. Children pointed at his house when they passed. Women whispered warnings. Men laughed and shook their heads. Daniel ignored them, but their words stayed in his mind. Who exactly was Solari? Why did people look at her with fear and pity mixed together? That evening, while they shared dinner, Daniel finally asked, "Solari, why did you come here? Why my house?" She paused, the spoon in her hand shaking slightly. For a long moment she didn't answer. Then she whispered, "Because no one else would open the door. Everyone else sees me as cursed." "You didn't?" Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He wanted to ask more, but the look in her eyes stopped him. They were filled with pain, but also something else, something like quiet hope. The rain outside had stopped, but inside Daniel's house, a storm had just begun. Days passed, and Daniel noticed how different life felt with Solari in the house. She worked quietly, never asking for rest, never complaining. By the time he came back from repairing machines, the home smelled of warm food, the floor was clean, and even the broken chair had been fixed with her careful hands, but there was something strange. Solari never spoke much, and when she did, her voice carried weight as if every word cost her energy. Daniel often caught her staring at the door, her face pale, her body tense, like she expected someone to appear at night. He sometimes woke up to faint noises, not from outside, but from her room. He heard whispers in a language he didn't know, followed by soft cries. Once he even heard her mutter a name over and over, a name that sounded broken on her tongue. One morning, Daniel found her outside, kneeling in the dirt, her hands pressed against the earth, as if she was praying. The rising sun made her silver skin shine faintly. He watched her for a moment. Then he asked softly, "Are you all right?" She quickly stood up, brushing her hands. Yes, I was. Remembering, Daniel wanted to ask what she remembered, but her eyes told him not to. There was too much pain hidden there. The neighbors, however, were not so silent. When Daniel walked into town to buy supplies, whispers followed him like shadows. "That alien widow, dangerous," someone muttered. "Her husband died in shame. They say she carries a curse," another voice added. Daniel tried to ignore them, but curiosity burned inside him. When he returned home, he looked at Silari differently, not with mistrust, but with the urge to understand. That evening, while they ate dinner, he asked gently, "Silari, may I ask about your past? About why people talk?" Her spoon froze in her hand. For a long moment she didn't move. Then she placed it down and stared at the table. Her voice trembled. "They whisper because I survived. My husband didn't." Daniel stayed quiet, letting her speak. He was strong. He fought against them, the ones who ruled our kind with chains and cruelty. "He told me to run when they came. He told me to live." Her eyes grew distant. "I lived, but when I returned, I found only ashes, only silence, and they said it was my fault, that I brought misfortune." Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. "Since then, no one would take me in. No one would let me stay. They called me cursed widow, and so I wandered. Until I reached your door." Daniel's chest tightened. He had expected sadness in her story, but not this weight of loss. He wanted to reach across the table, to comfort her, but before he could, she stood and turned away. "Please, do not ask me more. Some shadows are better left alone." Later that night, Daniel noticed scars on her arms, not only from chains but also burns. She had lived through fire, through torment, and yet she carried herself with quiet strength. The next day, Silari refused to go into town with him. She stayed home, and when he returned, he found her pacing near the window, her eyes wide. "Did anyone follow you?" she asked quickly. "No," Daniel replied, confused. "Why?" She swallowed hard. "Because they are still searching. The ones who destroyed my home, they do not forgive escape. If they find me, they will take me again." Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. Suddenly everything made sense. The whispers, the fear, the scars. She was not just any widow. She was a survivor running from powerful enemies. That night Daniel lay awake thinking. He had hired her as a housekeeper, but now he realized he had brought danger into his life. Still, when he remembered the look in her eyes, the pain she carried, he could not imagine sending her away. In the silence of the house, he heard her cry again, whispering in her alien tongue. But this time he also heard words he understood. "Don't take me back. Please." Daniel closed his eyes, and a decision began to form inside him. He would not let anyone take her. He didn't know why yet, whether it was pity or respect, or something deeper. But he knew he couldn't watch her be broken again. The shadows of Silari's past had entered his life, and they were darker than he imagined. But Daniel felt something stirring inside him, a strange courage. Perhaps the shadows would not only test her, but also test him. Outside, the night was quiet, but Daniel had a feeling it was only the calm before a storm. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, the silence between Daniel and Silari began to change. At first she had spoken little, her voice always low, her words always careful, but now Daniel sometimes caught a small spark in her eyes when he said something kind, or when he clumsily tried to fix something in the kitchen and failed. One evening Daniel returned home late, exhausted from repairing a broken water pump at the colony's edge. He expected the same quiet dinner, but instead, he found Silari sitting near the small heater, humming a tune in her alien language. It was soft, almost like a lullaby. She stopped when she noticed him, her face turning serious again. "You were singing," Daniel said, trying not to smile too much. Her silver skin seemed to warm, almost like a faint blush. "It was nothing, just an old song. My mother used to sing." "It was beautiful," Daniel replied, and for the first time, she didn't turn away from his gaze as days passed. Daniel began telling her little stories from Earth, about wide green fields, about rain that smelled of grass, about oceans that stretched beyond the horizon. Solari listened carefully as if each word was a treasure. She asked questions too, her voice curious. Did you ever swim in such oceans? Were the stars the same? Daniel laughed gently. The stars were the same, I suppose, but the oceans… Yes, I swam once. The water was cold, but it felt alive. Solari closed her eyes as if trying to imagine it. On my world, the seas burned. Acid waters. Only creatures with shells could survive there. Her voice softened. I would like to see your ocean someday. Daniel's heart ached at her words. He realized she was not just hiding from her past, she was dreaming of a future. Even if she barely believed in it one night, while repairing a broken chair together, their hands touched by accident. For a moment, neither moved. Solari looked at him, her glowing eyes soft. Daniel quickly pulled his hand back, muttering, Sorry, but the moment lingered in the air long after. The bond between them was not built on sudden passion, but on small things, shared meals, fixing things side by side, protecting each other from the whispers outside. But danger was never far. Whenever Daniel walked into town with Solari, the stares grew sharper. A shopkeeper once refused to sell them bread, muttering, I won't serve a cursed widow. Daniel clenched his fists, but Solari gently pulled him away. It doesn't matter, she whispered, though her trembling hands betrayed her. Later that night, Daniel asked her, Why do you stay here if the colony treats you like this? You could leave, start again elsewhere. Solari shook her head slowly. I have nowhere else to go. Every planet has its chains, every town has its whispers, but here. At least you don't shut the door on me. Her words struck him deeply. He realized that she stayed not because of the house, not because of safety, but because of him. One stormy night, thunder roared outside, and Daniel found Solari sitting on the floor, hugging her knees. Her body shook as if she was trapped in another time. Another memory. He crouched beside her and said softly, It's just thunder, nothing more. She looked up, tears shining in her eyes. When my home burned, the sky sounded like this. Daniel froze, then slowly, he wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, his voice steady. You're safe here, Solari. No one will hurt you, not while I'm here. For the first time, she leaned against him, letting her weight rest on his shoulder. Her voice broke as she whispered, Why? Why do you care? Daniel had no answer, not one he could put into words. He only knew that every time he saw her pain, he felt a fire inside, a need to protect her. From that night, their connection grew stronger. Solari began laughing quietly at his clumsy habits. Daniel noticed her leaving little flowers on the table. She even taught him a few words in her language. And he tried, failing often but making her smile. But beneath the growing bond, shadows still lurked. Sometimes, when Daniel caught her alone, her expression was distant, haunted, as if she feared happiness itself, as if she believed it could be stolen at any moment. Daniel realized he wasn't just living with a stranger anymore. He was living with someone whose heart was slowly beginning to open again. And his own heart, once heavy with loneliness, was no longer empty. Still, the danger she had spoken of was real. The hunters who destroyed her home were out there somewhere. And though their bond was growing, Daniel knew one thing: if they ever found her, he would have to choose between his own safety and hers. For now, though, in the small, quiet house lit by flickering lamps, they found something rare, something fragile, a bond that neither of them expected. And in the middle of the night, as Solari whispered another soft song while Daniel listened half asleep, he wondered if fate had brought her to his door for a reason. The colony town looked quiet on the outside, but Daniel felt a heaviness in the air. For weeks he had noticed strange signs, shadows that moved too carefully, footsteps that stopped when he turned, whispers in a language he could not understand. Solari also felt it. She spent more time near the window, her glowing eyes scanning the streets. Her hands shook whenever strangers passed by. One night she whispered, "They are close. I can feel them." Daniel frowned. "Who?" Her voice dropped low. "The hunters, the ones who destroyed my home. They never stop until the runaway is caught." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to believe she was safe now, but her trembling voice told him otherwise. The very next day, proof arrived. Daniel came home late from repairing broken turbines at the colony edge. As he turned the corner, he saw a group of tall armored aliens speaking with the townsfolk. Their uniforms were marked with dark sigils. He recognized the fear in the townspeople's eyes. They weren't guards, they were predators. Daniel didn't go closer. Instead, he hurried home. His heart pounded as he pushed open the door. Solari stood in the center of the room, pale and frozen. "I saw them too," she whispered before he even spoke. That night, they kept the lamps low and spoke in hushed voices. Solari's hands clutched the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. "If they find me, Daniel, they won't just take me, they'll kill you too. Anyone who hides me is punished." Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady but firm. "Let them come. I won't hand you over." Her eyes widened. "Why would you risk your life for me?" He paused, not sure how to answer, but the truth was already in his chest. "Because you're not just a worker here anymore, you're family now." Her lips trembled, as if the word family had pierced something deep inside her. But before she could reply, a heavy knock shook the door. They froze. Daniel's blood ran cold. Slowly, he walked to the door and opened it a crack. Outside stood one of the armored hunters, his voice deep and sharp. "We're searching for a fugitive. Female, silver skin, have you seen her?" Daniel forced his face to stay calm. "No, haven't seen anyone like that." The hunter's eyes narrowed, scanning Daniel's face, then his gaze shifted past him into the dark room. For a terrible second, Daniel thought Solari might be seen, but she stayed hidden in the shadows, silent as stone. Finally, the hunter grunted, "If you see her, report at once. Hiding her will cost you your life." He turned and walked away, heavy boots echoing down the street. Daniel shut the door quickly. His hands shook, but he tried to hide it. Solari stepped out, her face pale. "You lied for me," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "I'd do it again." From that night, the tension in the house grew. Every sound outside made Solari flinch. Every knock on the door made Daniel's heart race. The hunters had not left town. They moved in the markets, in the alleys, always watching. One evening, while Daniel repaired a generator in his workshop, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see two hunters blocking the doorway, their faces cold, their eyes burning. "We know you're hiding her," one growled. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." The second hunter stepped closer, towering over him. "Do not test us, human. We can smell her scent in your home. We will return, and if she is here, both of you will die." They left without another word, but their threat hung heavy in the air. When Daniel told Solari, she shook her head, tears sliding down her face. "I should leave. I can't let them kill you because of me." Daniel grabbed her shoulders firmly. "No, Solari, you won't face them alone. If they want you, they'll have to go through me first." Her glowing eyes searched his face, disbelief and hope fighting inside her. "Finally," she whispered. "No one has ever said that to me before." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, a small tool in his hand that could be turned into a weapon if needed. The colony outside looked peaceful, but danger walked its streets, and somewhere in the dark, the hunters planned their next move. The bond between Daniel and Solari had been tested, but now it faced its greatest trial. For the first time, Daniel realized this was no longer about kindness or pity. This was a fight for survival, and he would not let her be taken. The storm they had feared was no longer coming, it was already here. The hunters did not leave. Days passed, and their armored shadows grew longer across the colony. They visited shops, questioned families, even searched abandoned storage units. Their presence was like poison in the air. Everyone felt it. Daniel worked during the day, but his mind was never calm. He knew at any moment the hunters might knock on his door again, and this time they might not leave without tearing his house apart. Inside, Solari grew quieter. She avoided windows and rarely stepped outside. Her hands trembled when she cleaned. Her voice broke when she tried to speak. One night, Daniel found her standing in the kitchen, staring at the knife in her hand. "Solari," he said softly. Walking toward her, she turned, her glowing eyes wet with tears. "If they come, I will go with them. I will not let you die because of me." Daniel shook his head, his voice firm. "No, that's not happening. You've suffered enough. I won't let them take you," she whispered. "But you could lose everything." Daniel stepped closer. "Some things are worth risking everything for." Her lips trembled, and for a moment silence filled the room. The storm outside pounded against the walls, lightning flashing across her silver skin. The next day, the hunters returned to his street. Their boots echoed like war drums as they moved from house to house. Daniel watched from his window, his stomach tight. He knew they would reach him soon. Solari grabbed his arm. "Please, let me run. I can disappear before they arrive. You don't have to fight this fight." Daniel turned. His jaw set. Solari, if you run, they'll track you down, and if I let you go, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. We face this together. She looked at him with disbelief, as if she couldn't understand why a human who barely knew her would risk so much. Moments later, the heavy knock shook the door. This time it was not just one hunter, but three, armored and armed. Daniel opened the door halfway, blocking their view of the inside. The leader stepped forward, his voice cold. Human, this is your last chance. Hand over the fugitive, or you die with her. Daniel's chest burned with fear, but his voice came out steady. There's no one here but me. You're wasting your time. The hunter narrowed his eyes. Do not lie. Our trackers read her scent. She is inside. He pushed the door. Trying to force his way in, Daniel held firm, his hands gripping the edge of the door. For a moment, it felt like the thin metal barrier was the only thing between Solari and her nightmares. Leave, Daniel growled, surprising even himself. You want her? You'll have to go through me. The hunters froze. Taken aback by his defiance, the leader tilted his head, studying him like a strange animal. Then slowly he stepped back. Very well, human. If you want to die protecting her, so be it. They left, their footsteps heavy, their silence darker than words. Daniel shut the door, breathing hard. Solari came out from the shadows, tears streaming down her face. You stood against them, she whispered. Daniel turned to her. I told you. I won't let them take you. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. You don't understand. Daniel, they don't stop. They will return with more. They'll burn this house, this town, everything. I cannot let you suffer because of me. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice low but fierce. Then let them come. We'll face them together. I don't care about the whispers. I don't care about the threats. What I care about is you. Solari stared at him, her glowing eyes wide, her lips parted as if she wanted to speak. But no words came. Instead, she reached up and touched his hand gently. Her fingers shook, but her touch was steady. That night, for the first time, Solari didn't cry herself to sleep. Instead, she sat near the fire with Daniel, listening to the storm outside. Her voice broke the silence at last. When my husband died, I thought I would never trust anyone again, but now I see something in you I thought was gone forever. Daniel looked into the fire, unsure what to say, but deep inside he knew the truth. This was no longer just about protecting her. Something stronger was pulling them together. The hunters would return, stronger than before, and the colony itself might turn against them. But Daniel had already made his choice. It was a dangerous choice. Maybe even a foolish one, but it was his, and nothing would make him hand her over. Outside, the storm finally calmed, but inside, two souls sat close, knowing their greatest battle was yet to come. The hunters didn't return right away. Days passed, and the street outside Daniel's house seemed calm again. But the calm felt fragile, like glass that could shatter at any moment. Inside the small home, something began to change. Solari still glanced at the windows often, still jumped at sudden sounds, but slowly, the fear inside her started to soften. She no longer ate in silence. She no longer hid her songs. One morning, Daniel woke to the smell of warm bread. When he entered the kitchen, he saw Solari pulling a tray from the old oven. Her silver skin caught the light as she turned. Her glowing eyes looked brighter than before. You baked this? Daniel asked, blinking in surprise. She gave a small smile, shy but real. I remembered an old recipe. I thought, you might like it. Daniel took a piece. Biting into it, the taste was soft and sweet. Unlike anything he had eaten in months, he laughed. Solari, this is better than anything in the colony market. Her smile grew wider, and for a moment, the shadows of her past seemed far away. In the evenings, they began sitting together by the fire. Daniel told more stories of Earth, about childhood games, about forests that smelled of pine, about stars seen from mountaintops. Solari listened, her head tilted slightly, her eyes soft. Sometimes she shared her own memories, of alien festivals filled with lights, of rivers that glowed at night, of the last time she held her sister's hand before the hunters came. Each story brought them closer. Their words stitched the distance between human and alien, until silence between them felt comfortable, even warm. One night, Daniel came home with a small pot of flowers he had traded for. They were blue, glowing faintly in the dark. He placed them on the table. For you, he said awkwardly. Solari touched the petals gently. Her voice trembled. No one has given me a gift in years. It's nothing special, Daniel muttered. Embarrassed, her glowing eyes looked into his. It is to me. As weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. Solari stopped sleeping with fear, and Daniel stopped feeling the crushing loneliness that had haunted him for years. They began working together, fixing broken furniture, repairing the old garden outside the house, planting seeds that might one day grow. The neighbors still whispered, but Daniel no longer cared. Solari, too, seemed stronger. She held her head higher when she walked beside him, even when people turned away. One evening, as the sky turned red with sunset, Daniel found Solari sitting on the porch, her cloak wrapped around her shoulders. She looked at the horizon and whispered, I never thought I would find peace again, not even for a day, and yet, here I am. Daniel sat beside her, silent for a moment, then said, You deserve more than peace, you deserve happiness. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Happiness. I thought that word was lost to me. She turned to him, her voice soft but steady. But now when I look at you, I feel it again. The words struck him deeply. Daniel's chest tightened. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached out and gently held her hand. She didn't pull away, her fingers laced with his. Trembling but sure, that night, they shared their first embrace. It was not sudden or rushed, but gentle. Born of trust slowly rebuilt, Solari rested her head against Daniel's chest, listening to his heartbeat as if it anchored her to safety. For Daniel, it felt like a door opening in his life, one he thought had been closed forever. Their days grew brighter after that. The small house no longer felt empty. Laughter filled the rooms, and warmth spread where once there had been silence. But even as they built this new life together, Daniel knew the danger was not gone. The hunters would return, they always did. He saw the way Solari still scanned the skies, the way her hands still shook at the sound of heavy boots outside. One evening, Daniel spoke what both had been thinking. They'll come again, Solari, and when they do, we'll face them together. She looked at him, her glowing eyes wet but steady. Together, she repeated, her voice carrying both fear and courage. The bond between them had become more than survival. More than protection, it was love, fragile but powerful, born out of shared pain and shared hope. And in that love, Daniel found new strength. A strength he never knew he had. Solari found something too, a reason to live, a reason to fight. Their new life together was not perfect, nor was it safe, but it was real and it was theirs. And for the first time in years, both human and alien dared to dream of tomorrow. The seasons on the colony shifted slowly. Days grew longer, the air warmer, and the small garden outside Daniel's house began to bloom. Blue flowers stretched toward the sun, the same ones Daniel had brought home months before. Inside the house, life felt different. Solari smiled more now, though her eyes still carried old shadows. Daniel worked hard during the day, but in the evenings he returned to warmth instead of silence. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't just surviving, he was living. But something began to change. Daniel noticed Solari move slower. She often sat down, holding her stomach with a puzzled look. At first he thought she was ill. Do you feel sick? He asked one evening, worry in his voice. Solari shook her head, her voice soft. Not sick. Something else. Weeks passed, and the truth began to show. Her body changed in ways neither of them expected. One morning she stood by the window, her hand resting on her stomach, glowing eyes wide with wonder. Daniel, she whispered, I think I'm carrying life. Daniel froze, his mind spinning. You mean? Solari turned to him, tears shining on her cheeks. Yes, Daniel, I am with child. Your child. For a long moment he couldn't breathe. It was something no one believed possible. Humans and her kind were not supposed to create life together. Yet here she stood, proof glowing in her eyes and trembling in her hands. Daniel stepped closer, his voice shaking. Are you sure? She nodded. I feel it. It is not just my body. It is something deeper, something new growing inside me. Daniel's chest filled with emotions he couldn't name. Fear, joy, disbelief, hope all at once. He reached out, placing his hand gently over hers, feeling the warmth beneath. Solari, this child, it's impossible, but it's real. Solari smiled through her tears. Impossible things have always been my curse, but maybe this one is a blessing. The days that followed were filled with quiet wonder. Daniel worked harder than ever, bringing home food, fixing the house to make it safer. Solari began humming again, not to chase away sorrow, but to comfort the life inside her. One night they sat by the fire, Solari resting against Daniel's shoulder. Her voice was soft. When the hunters come again, they will not only want me, they will want this child. They will fear what it means. Daniel's arms tightened around her. Then we protect both of you, no matter the cost. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and love. Do you realize what this child is, Daniel? A bridge between our worlds, proof that we are not as different as they say. Daniel nodded. Then we'll raise this child strong enough to show the galaxy that love is greater than chains. For the first time, Solari let herself laugh, a sound light and full of life. It filled the room like music. Daniel realized he would do anything to keep that sound alive. But whispers spread again through the colony. Neighbors noticed Solari's condition. Some looked at her with disgust, others with fear. A child? Between her kind and a human? It is unnatural, they muttered. Daniel ignored them. His focus was on Solari, on the life they had created together. He refused to let gossip break what they had built. As weeks passed, the hunters indeed returned, but this time, Daniel and Solari were ready. When armored figures appeared on their street, Daniel stood tall, not as a lonely human, but as a protector of his family. The hunters demanded her surrender, but Daniel's voice rang clear. This is my home, this is my family. You will not touch them. The hunters hesitated, sensing something different. The widow they once chased was no longer alone. She had someone willing to fight beside her, and soon a child who would change everything. In the end, they left, for now. But Daniel knew they would come again. The difference was that fear no longer ruled their lives. Hope did. That night, as Solari lay resting, Daniel placed his hand gently on her stomach. He whispered to the unborn child, "You are the proof that we are stronger together. You are our future." Solari opened her eyes, her voice faint but steady. "And you, Daniel, are the reason I believe in life again." In that moment, Daniel realized how far they had come, from the night a stranger knocked on his door, to the moment he became the guardian of a family he never expected. The future was uncertain, full of danger and battles yet to come. But it was also full of something greater, love, trust, and a child who would be the first of their kind. And so, in a small house on a distant colony, a new chapter of history began, not with war, but with the unexpected bond between a human and an alien widow, a bond strong enough to bring life where no one believed it could exist.